through New York, and everyone thinks she's a national hero. Of course, that bit hasn't happened yet. What Sibel told congressional investigators was that there had been investigations into Turkish targets. Some of these Turkish targets were supposed to be government officials, diplomats working in the embassy or in the consulate in Chicago, and some were non-governmental officials working for the ATC, the American Turkish Council.
Of the tight ATC annual conference on U.S. Turkish relations.
As far as I am concerned, the article is replete with knowable lies, and a responsible journalist would not have run with it. It says that the wiretaps suggested to Sibel Edmonds that the Washington office of the ATC was being used as a front for criminal activity, and that we would deny in the absolute strongest possible terms.
But there was a bigger bombshell than that. The article also revealed that Sibel had reported hearing Turkish wiretap targets boasting of a covert relationship with Dennis Hastert, the Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives. He denied it through a spokesman.
This is all nonsense. It's not being reported by the mainstream press because there's no factual evidence. The reporter does not have a transcript of any wiretap conversations that we know of. And even if we did, it's preposterous. The speaker does not have any connections to American Turkish interests. Makes for great summertime reading. And the next thing the magazine will do is blame the speaker for the Jennifer Aniston-Brad Pitt breakup.
In a country rocked by intelligence scandals ever since September 11th, the revelations in Vanity Fair didn't cause much of a stir. Sibel went on waiting for the Supreme Court decision.
This article only deals with two angles, only two angles of much more. I'm not the only one who knows about this. Too many people know about this. The fraudulent 9/11 commissioners, every single one of them knows about my case and the details and the names and all the specifics. Several people within the United States Congress do know. Everybody in the FBI involved, they know. Everyone in Department of Justice, they know. My goal has been exposing the criminal activities. Criminal activities where money laundering, narcotic activities, and nuclear black market converge with terrorist activities. Put out the tapes, put out the wiretaps, put out those documents. Put out the truth. The truth is going to hurt them. The truth is going to set me free. Let's finish.
Some people in influential positions in America do not want the full truth about Sibel's case to come out. The sort of neocon clique that has had such an influential role in American foreign policy, that was the driving force behind the war with Iraq, most notably, also have lots of close connections in Turkey. They're determined to do whatever they can to preserve Turkey as an ally of the United States.
Neoconservatives, Ankara's allies in Washington and the Pentagon, were then influential in the Bush administration. Allies of Vice President Dick Cheney, they were ideologues who advocated high military spending and a hard-line foreign policy. They made their debut in the Reagan administration in the 1980s. Under Bill Clinton, the most influential among them took positions with leading defense contractors. Back in power under George W. Bush, they were also very close to the Israeli right. 7,000 kilometers from Washington, another man has inside information. Ex-CIA officer Philip Giraldi, formerly based in Turkey, is retired and living in Tuscany. He has a disturbing take on the case of Sibel Edmonds.
Around about a year ago, I realized that I understood what the full story was and what she was trying to say, although she couldn't do it publicly because of the gag order. For me, the full story was to follow the money on this.
Giraldi wrote a column about Sibel's case in the American Conservative magazine. He reviewed the activities of the American Turkish Council and other Turkish and Israeli lobby groups, their financial links with the Turkish authorities, and their links with what he called the military-industrial complex neocon network.
Turkey is interested in being able to purchase embargo technologies and that sort of thing that you'd like to get. And knowing the players in the game from my time in the Central Intelligence Agency, I assumed that the Turks and the Israelis and these people, most of whom came out of the Department of Defense, would have been dealing in weapons.
In recruiting Israel's top supporters in the United States, the Turkish generals knew what they were doing. Over 10 years, Turkey received more than $12 billion worth of military assistance from the US. A grateful Ankara opened its airspace to Israel. The Anatolian Plateau, bordering both Syria and Iran, was a godsend for Israel. By the mid-90s, the triangle of the United States, Israel and Turkey had entered its golden age. Giraldi identifies two figures of the neoconservative right as typical of the American allies of Turkey and Israel. The charismatic Richard Pearl, nicknamed the Prince of Darkness, and his protege, Douglas Feith, a fervent supporter of Israeli settlers in the West Bank and Gaza. Both were former Pentagon officials, and both played a pivotal part in the US-Turkish-Israeli triangle.
Douglas Feith was a paid consultant for the government of Turkey in the late 1980s and into the early 1990s, and Richard Pearl was working as one of his consultants also on the Turkish project. Both of these individuals are closely tied to defense industries in Israel. Richard Pearl is very well known to the intelligence community, and I would suspect that most people in the intelligence community who know about him and his story would say that basically he's an agent of influence for the state of Israel.
Richard Pearl was first investigated for his links with Israel in 1970. He was wiretapped by the FBI. It is said that in 1983, Feith lost his position on the National Security Council for disclosing secret information to Israel. In 1986, 88 and 98, their closest associates were investigated over similar allegations. The latest scandal broke in 2005 when confidential documents on Iran's nuclear program were illegally passed from the Pentagon to the Israeli embassy. Once again, Feith was in the firing line.
Mr. Undersecretary, did anyone in your office give classified documents to Israel or Ahmed Shalawi?
No. I mean, I'm, as you know, that's a matter that's being investigated. I don't know of that, but it's a matter that's under investigation.
All of these people have been investigated by the FBI at one point or another for passing secret information to Israel. In no cases were any of them convicted because the prosecutions were dropped, in my opinion, because of political pressure not to get into this kind of case that involves Israel and espionage.
To avoid suspicion, Israel and Turkey both used a tried and true method, the front company. One was Giza Technologies, a New Jersey import-export company. Its manager, Zeki Bilman, is Turkish. His conversations, monitored by the FBI, were translated by Sibel Edmonds. In 2003, Giza Technologies shipped 200 triggered spark gaps, devices that could be used to detonate nuclear weapons, to an Israeli broker in Cape Town. Their export, like that of enriched uranium, was restricted to signatories of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, such as South Africa.
If you want to circumvent the system, what you do is you sell the weapon to a country that is entitled to buy it, and that country, acting collusively with you, will forge or alter the end-user certificate so the weapon actually winds up somewhere else.
From Cape Town, Giza's detonators were sent straight to Pakistan. 6 months later, the Israeli broker was arrested. There was an inquiry, but Giza was never investigated. That was a mistake, says journalist Joseph Trento.